Welcome to the World Art Now podcast, exploring the world through the material culture of its people, in association with Michael Backman Limited.
Hi, it's Michael Backman and Sarah Corbett, and we're here. We've actually gone and chosen a piece each, and they're both from different parts of the world. Both are made of metal. Sarah's piece is actually, and she's going to talk about it, but it's from Africa. My piece is actually from Southeast Asia. And why we've chosen these two seemingly disparate pieces is because they're quite connected, actually. There's a connection, a common factor, but we'll talk about the objects first. The first one, my piece is a box, and it's made of brass. It's cast brass. It's sitting on my lap as we speak, so it's not too heavy. It's got a hinged lid and 4 little feet, and it importantly can be locked. I'm just opening it now, so you can hear. Right, now it's closed again. Inside there's nothing. It's for putting things in. There's a handle so you can carry it. It's essentially, think of it as a cash box. It's highly decorated all over with stylized birds, possibly garudas. There's sort of like bamboo-y type motifs and geometric motifs. It's quite Islamic looking other than for the bird representations in it. What it is that it's a cash box from the Minangkabau people of Sumatra, from the Minangkabau highlands. But I'm going to talk about those people more, but first I'm going to let Sarah talk about the object she has chosen. Sarah.
Hi, thanks Michael. It's a lovely piece to share there, and this is another. This is, I'll describe how it looks first of all. It jingles a little bit. It's a series of pendants hanging one below the other. The top is a flared rectangle, beneath which one large and 2 smaller triangle pendants are suspended, and both of the bottom triangles and the middle one have a row of smaller triangles which dangle from them on rings. The back of the piece is iron and the front is silver, which is also then further decorated with brass and copper. It's a piece of adornment worn by a Hogar Tuareg woman from the south of Algeria. And the symbolism relates to Tanit, who is a Phoenician goddess who still has relevance to many North African, Berber and Tuareg people. The surface of the piece has a design hammered from within, because these are 3-dimensional pendants that have a void section in their centres, and the adornment is based on eyes of protection and dots and crosses and squares arranged in significant patterns to Tuareg regarding times when they're sedentary in their tents and times when they're nomadic and crossing the desert. So Michael, 2 very different pieces, both from places that we individually enjoy visiting and enjoy
Absolutely.
the history.
Mm-hmm.
So how are they connected?
Well, okay, there's a basic connection between them, and a commonality, and then there's something more interesting. The first thing is that both the Minangkabau people and the Tuareg are Muslims.
They are.
They are indeed. So we've got the Muslim Minangkabau of Sumatra, the Tuareg from sub-Saharan Africa, but the very interesting thing about both of these groups is that they're both matrilineal. So they are. So matrilineal means that essentially, when it comes to inheritance, the family's property goes down via the female line, not the male line. And so certainly I'm not quite sure about the Tuareg, but I definitely know for the Minangkabau, it is essential for Minangkabau families to have daughters.
Yes.
And it's the same for the Tuareg.
It is. And is it also the family name that passes through the female bloodline?
Yeah, if they use a family name, yes, perhaps, but they probably may not. So the thing is also with the Minangkabau, they will keep having daughters, and they'll keep having sons until they have a daughter. So it's every Minangkabau family's dream is to have this daughter. And I've told this story quite often, I think, but I can remember getting into a taxi at Jakarta's international airport, and the taxi driver said to me, the usual conversation in Indonesia is, oh, are you married? Do you have children? I was like, yes, I have a son, and so on. And then I said to the taxi driver, have you got children? And he said, yes, I've got 6 sons. And I said, well, that's fantastic. Congratulations, because in most developing countries, 6 sons would be every family's dream. And he said, no. He said, I'm Minangkabau. And I was like, oh. So what he needed was a daughter.
Waiting for a daughter.
Waiting for a daughter. And he was going to keep having children until he had that daughter. So this is such a novel turnaround compared to what we're used to in most parts of the world. Where
Absolutely different.
Where you have sort of sex-selected abortion in China and in India and so on, and in favour of sons. But to actually come across an Islamic group where people are desperate to have daughters is really interesting.
A little spark of a feminist something going on there.
Yes, very novel.
And the relationship between mothers and daughters around marriage in the Hauga and the Tuareg people is very unique as well. The mother gives a necklace to her daughter called a khomisa, made of shells and leather, at the point that she is happy to accept proposals of marriage from local young men. And the young man is brought into the family of the female rather than the bride leaving to go to the groom's family. It's the opposite way round. The unique thing about the wedding practices is that once the mother has had those proposals of interest, the bride-to-be is able to road test all candidates privately in her tent for a night.
Oh, good heavens,
before she chooses which one she would like to accept as her partner. So quite a strong aspect of female control going on there all along. Right.
I've in Southeast Asia. I've stayed with a Minangkabau family in a kampung, the village as it's called, and Minang houses are typically they're made of wood and they're on stilts, and usually there's one big central room, and then there'll be smaller bedrooms that come off of it, and at the back there's a kitchen. And I remember it was just a fascinating time because I was there, and the men of the house they usually had jobs like civil service type jobs and so on. So they'd go out during the day and then they'd come back. But they were not the breadwinners. It was almost as if they were given a job with the government just to get rid of them during the day. And their job largely was to be barely superfluous of sperm donors. They kind of would come home at night and just like lie around, watch TV, eat, go to bed, and then go out to work again. Meanwhile, the women of the house ran the rubber plantations that the family owned and ran the other businesses, looked after all of the money and so on. Hence why I have a cash box sitting on my lap, a Minangkabau cash box, which almost certainly belonged to a woman.
The property of a woman and a business owner.
Absolutely. And when you went to sort of like the village marketplace and so on, it was all controlled by women. Women were running all of the stalls and in control of all of the money. And typically in a Minangkabau family, the woman has control over the family's finances, and the man often won't even know. So a friend of mine who was Minangkabau, he stood to inherit nothing because he was a son. And he said, well, he was fine with that because that was his family's culture. He understood that.
That's culturally how it is.
Yeah. And so, in fact, when his mother did die, his sister got everything. So got the house, got the plantations and so on. The mother had made an allowance for the son, but she didn't have to. It was just something. She was being a bit modern by letting the son have something, by being a bit more equal. So it's such a reversal compared to what we would assume, for a developing country perhaps, and certainly for an Islamic culture.
It is very different to everything that we're led to believe as being the only way.
Yeah. I must also say that I remember, this is coming back to me now, the women of the house were noisy. God, they were so noisy. And
I think that goes across all.
well, yes, maybe that's not specific to this culture, but they were noisy, and the men made no impact. I remember being introduced to them, but I don't remember much about them because they kind of in the evenings they just sort of lay in front of the TV.
Just sank back into.
They kind of literally sank into the carpet, and whereas the women they were cooking, they were controlling everything, talking about business, and it was just talk, and they kind of barely paid any attention to the men. They really were quite redundant.
Just one use.
Yeah, well, one use, exactly, yeah.
I think it would be great if we could share some images of the pieces that we've discussed today.
Yes.
For those that are listening to the podcast to able to visualise what it is that we've been describing to them today. So there'll be a Pinterest board to accompany this podcast, and within that you'll be able to find images of the pieces and relevant images and a link to listen to this with the pictures to look at too.
And probably some pictures of the people as well.
Absolutely.
Associated with these objects.
Stuff.
Wonderful.
Great to discuss some unexpected elements of pieces that we're both quite familiar with and find a connection there.
Yeah, indeed. Every object has a story.
It really does.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Michael.
You have been listening to the World Art Now podcast in association with Michael Backman Limited. To hear more, visit worldartnow.com.